What's up, everybody? This is my second video Sunday reflection. Been working all weekend to get some modules and things done for work, but I definitely wanted to do the reflection today. Today's one is titled Sunday's Reflection. I get it. So I'm gonna just start this one off about kind of talking about my different assignments as a teacher. And what I learned and then where I think I stand now. But at my first assignment, I had some tough kids. So I felt like at that particular place, I was surrounded by so many great educators who had varying skill sets, and I've been having a conversation with a lot of my former coworkers about. Had a lot of people with a lot of different skill sets, so I was able to absorb it all. I've joked with people, I almost felt like I was able to go Super Saiyan pretty quick. My sister Christina's a great educator, her friend Audrey's a great educator, and I was around these people, and I was able to absorb all of it. And my mentor teacher told me, like, the coaches and the administrators said they had never seen anybody that could absorb, coaching and just do it immediately. And I was able to do that. So I was able to accelerate my process, but that goes with, I feel like where God is going to come back to that as far as where I feel God, placed me there. So I was able to accelerate my process because I began my career as a teacher at 31, not 21. And the things I was able to learn there. And so there I had struggles, classroom management, as far as like some kids that were pretty tough. For the times that maybe I wanted to support it and different things like that, but I still had those struggles, and like that will be valuable going forward. As I would kind of wrap this conversation up, and with I was able to get the kids to perform. I was able to get all those things to take place, and so one thing I definitely learned during that time period, and I felt this is my foundational time. As far as the teaching part, I still honestly was quite learning. There was some things I was good at. Backwards design, that's something I'm gonna write about this week. Just motivating, engaging, those some skills I are very good at, and it's almost crazy how I can look back now and I had a greatness talk with my kids, a 30-minute talk, and I see like how it shifted their mindset after the fact. At the time, I probably didn't even realize it to the extent that I should have. But I was able to get those kids to perform, 91% on the star, all that good stuff. So the thing about it, I was able to kind of establish some things and people saw the potential. But I think it was time for me to go somewhere else. And there's a lot of things, and one of the little things people probably don't understand, and I wrote about it at the time, when I went to my next assignment, I was at a kids camp for about 3 days, had no service. And then when I came back, that next principal called me first, and then the principal that took over at that school I was at called me maybe 3 minutes later, and I kind of like that was a sign to me where I needed to go. Second assignment, I could say it's probably one of the more challenging times of my career as far as being questioned about, your methods and how you're doing things. And at the time, I was a relatively still new teacher as far as not having a full understanding of like how my methods were different than what everybody else were doing. I was just in there teaching. I wasn't thinking about, oh, this is a different method. But, I'm competitive. So I'm like, man, I'm going to learn about all these different methods. And I started looking and researching and doing different things, not to an extreme level immediately, but I got a lot of trainings during that time period, during that assignment. And I was allowed to teach. I didn't have to deal with behavior as much. So I was just able to go in there and teach. Those kids didn't need that. And that was a different school environment as well, which I'll come back to. So this might be a longer video now I look at it, but I don't care. I think it's time, I should, it should be a little longer. So in that assignment, it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. It was a very challenging time in my career. It was very rough. And I left that assignment and took some time off of teaching. I kind of had to really rebuild my confidence, but during that time, I did a lot of research during that time. And that was when I knew that was my craft and what I wanted to do. So I was like, I still view myself as an educator, so that didn't change. So I was able to start researching and I really started honing my craft. And also during that time period, my friend Reggie, he told me, hey man, start a business, So I was able to get the logo done, get all that stuff done, and birth a phenomenal student. And then, thankfully I was able to get a job as an interventionist, which probably a role that was fit for me anyway. I knew a lot of the methods, what a lot of people wanted to do was a little different. And I felt during this time period, this is the time where I really started to grow and being able to do some things. And it was another component that I needed to learn. So as far as doing interventions, because small groups was always something I was solid at, but I never honed in on it the way I should. I did focus more on that whole group instruction and being able to be engaging and be these things, pedagogically sound, all those good things, and just bringing it as a teacher. But that small group piece is one that I really needed to lock in on. And I felt like I have been able to the last year or so, and learning about those kids at the lowest common denominator, what are those struggles, how can you remediate that? So I feel like in the last few years that has been key. So this is the second part of the conversation of like, what I get. So I'm gonna look at my first assignment. My 3 assignments, I've worked in 3 different student populations, predominantly African American, predominantly Caucasian, and predominantly Hispanic populations. So I've had a chance in even these 7 years to work with different populations Even my assignment as a paraprofessional, I was able to work at a behavior school, and then still working with kids. So I understood the difference between behavior and kids that were, Gen Ed kids. I was starting to learn those things already. And then so, even with that, I've been chronicling my journey the whole time. And so early on in my career, in most of the first couple of years, it was mostly about what was going on in the classroom and my victories with the kids. But as I've transitioned to now, I'm looking at it now, I'm talking a lot about, and so even then I was talking about teaching. So let's look at that piece real quick. I was talking about teaching. I know somebody else like, man, I'm trying to read about all this boring teaching stuff, but I was chronicling my journey. So now I don't have a lot of video for all the stuff, but at the same time, I'm able to like, oh, look at these little pieces. I was essentially talking about my classroom practices. And someone even was saying like, hey, you're gonna be a teacher of teachers just by reading that. To me, I didn't get that, but others saw that. And I was really talking about my practices and what I was doing to get my kids to be successful. I was just talking about what I was doing in the classroom. So I look back now, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get that part. My second assignment, I was kind of doing the same thing, and I really was showing my journey, how I was growing. And I was starting to write about I was being more formal about writing what I was doing in the classroom. And now I'm to the point now where I'm moving toward being not a full-time consultant in a sense, but, doing that now as a secondary thing. Maybe one day do it just solely as a consultant, but I'm moving toward doing that. I have one assignment now for that, but that will continue to grow. So I'm looking at now, I'm able to encourage those people who are looking to either become a consultant, even some other consultants like, man, they're encouraged by what I'm doing, that I can chronicle my journey and seeing me grow in that role. So I'm talking more about, my victories and conferences and things like that. So now, I'm able to talk about that. So, I'm starting to see like, okay, that vision God, put me on 8 years ago to start writing these reflections. I'm basically chronicling my ascension and what I'm doing, starting essentially my ministry. Teaching is my ministry. As I said, when I first started my teaching career, God may not be in the school system as some like to call it, but it can be in you and your journey. Like all these challenges, all these different things you go through, it is your ministry. Like it's meant to be that way. It's not meant for it to be smooth or everybody to like you or everything to be perfect. Because if you're doing what you're supposed to do, everybody not gonna like you. You're gonna be the ones that gonna get attacked and things like that's gonna take place. So that's something I definitely want everybody to kind of understand. So there's a little bit longer video, just like one of my longer reflections. But I think everything's become clear to me now. I understand why God made me, but at the same time, I'm starting to get it. Like, okay, I went through classroom management struggle, so I can help that young teacher with that. Like, hey, I know how that is. I went through having to learn the pedagogy of it. I understand how that is. I worked in different student populations, so I know how to adjust depending on the population and in different work environments as far as the people that I work with. So you have to learn how to do that. And I mean, it's always perfect. Honestly, being a black male, you understand that. So you can coach that younger person about what they're dealing with. So now I'm able to dispense that teacher advice because my process has been accelerated. Now, I'm not saying there's a lot of people got a lot of, stories after 7 years, but it's so many things that happen. So many things I can talk about that I'm able to authentically and have the experience to be able to dispense that advice and be able to help that next person come up. So as I think about that, I just want everybody, we all might get upset about what God has put us through and the different things, the challenges we've had, but realize there's a reason for it. There is a reason for it. So you really have to understand that. And then you really understand the process that he's taking you through as a character training. It's a training of your skill set and what his mission and what he wants you to do. So I just, say this to God. I get it. I get what you wanted me to do. So I'm going to say, God bless Jeremiah. I'm just challenge y'all really just to think about where you are at your time of life and why you are there at the moment. Peace out.